I'm going to start with DXY today. Things have pretty much been playing out very well to how we expected them to play out and how I was talking about last week as well. Last Tuesday, we had more of a down day, which is kind of what I was thinking that if we pull back a little more and then have end the week on a high on a long wick, is that's what I was really looking for last week inside of this 200 EMA on the weekly chart. And that's exactly what we got. We dipped down at the end of the week, hit the same level that we bounced at multiple times here in April and May. Bounced right hard from there. Can't see screen. Well, that's a problem. Thank you, sir. Boom. All right, so what I was saying was last Tuesday, this was this day. I was thinking that maybe we are going to push down a little further into the 200 EMA on the weekly and end up at this little, the bottom of this previous range and this support right here, the demand zone that we've had multiple times in the past. So we've hit this zone and that's exactly what we did. We had on Wednesday, we had our low of the week, or no, Thursday we had our low of the week, and then had a decent little bounce on Friday. We had a really good reversal candle on Thursday, and then continuation today. And so the weekly chart is pretty much going exactly as we were planned. I don't expect for this to just go crazy and continue just straight up. I think it could do something similar to this move right here. Sorry. I think it could do something similar to like around, I think we could be around this level where it could come down and base out still for a little more. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we get rejected from this 21 EMA, similar to what we were doing right here. It's still a declining 21 EMA and it's going to continue declining because right now it's taking in this data and for the next few can't in the next few days it's going to continue taking in this top data. So unless it gets up above here, it's going to continue to decline. So we could see some sort of rejection here, but we'll see how that happens. But on a weekly chart, I still think we have a couple more weeks we could see of sideways and then continue to the upside. So we did have our a good distribution day again in the Qs. So with QQQ, let me get rid of all of this. We just got our 21-day moving average bounce, which is kind of what was expected from it's still inclining at a high range, so it was a good bounce right from that level. And I don't think it's going to be just as simple as if we do end up with a pullback, I don't want to see it just straight down. So it's good. It would be cool. It would be nice if we kind of bounced, kind of consolidated in this little range, right, that we've created. So now we've created this like what is this 400 to 413-ish. So this little range right here, we could consolidate around this range for another couple weeks even. And just similar to this, we consolidated to in this range for 14 trading days before even going down. And so right now we are at, well, we're at 13 from that top, but we could continue for another 20. And so this didn't go down right away. So when my trend ends, and so like when I talk about we're on day, let me see, we are on day 39 today of an uptrend, and that starts and ends at a 21-day moving average. I started actually at a 10-day because I want to get in a little early, but I ended at a 21-day, which is just discretionary. And so like right now we are actually technically day 41 of our uptrend right now. So I don't think still don't think that we have had a large enough pullback for heavy buys right now because I want to see a good flush below this 21 day and a test of this 50 day right here. And that's going to be a huge key is when we can test this 50 day, which is another 4% to the downside, which is absolutely exactly kind of what I want. Um, yeah, 4 to 5% from the top. So that's really what I'm looking for. And that'd be a test of this 380 right here in the Qs, somewhere around there. Because the 50-day moving average, where's my dot? Hmm, It's not a dot one. Oh, that's just a normal SMA. Damn. So 50 days ago is right here. And this is what I do a lot is that's what these little eyes are right here and right here. These little dots are the exact amount of days from where the moving average is actually taking its data from. So tomorrow this is gonna fall off and this is gonna if this is gonna start right here and it's gonna take everything up to there. And so then this is the next day is gonna continue. And so if we are below, so like say tomorrow we're gonna take this data off and we're gonna be all of this data. If we're below this last candle, then your moving average is going to start declining. It's going to start flattening or declining. And so if we stay below this Monday the 18th low close throughout the next few weeks, and we're going to start declining, and the 10-day moving average is going to actually start declining. Yes, ma'am. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for is like if the 21 continues to stay strong and we bounce off the 21, we could see a nice like maybe it come up either form a right shoulder or an uppercut and then continue lower. But I want to see like a consolidation of some more sort. And then ideally if we do get that, your 50 day would start actually curling up and coming up to it. And so if we come up, if the 50 day ends up trailing up to it, and the price goes sideways like this, and you start seeing something like that, and this 50-day just kind of creeps up and creeps up and creeps up, like something like this, that's going to be a lot more powerful and a lot stronger of a move than if we see something straight down like this and then start trying to bounce here. And so I would like to see a more of a flow to the as it's going down to let the 50-day come up and bounce and come up to it. That's the strongest markets is when you see that 50-day coming up to it instead of like similar to right here. We had a pullback, the 50-day came up to it, and then we came up for a bounce. And that kind of allows it to reset the count but it builds a base. So we could build ideally at a minimum 3 weeks is what I'm looking for. And so minimum I would be really looking for a 3 week consolidation or pullback. Excuse me, ma'am. And so that's what I'm looking for the most in the Qs. With the interest rates, they are starting to continue lower still. TLT is starting to have a little bit of a pullback, but we're above this 200 EMA, which is really what we want to see. We have great volume on the upside here, and this 200 is starting to flatten out. And so as it retests, it'll probably retest, come down, form a base, and then continue higher. And TLT I think is one in the next month that's gonna or next year that's gonna do very well. I think we'll be able to at least get to this 110 level, which for a bonds 10% is fairly pretty good. One thing that we were talking about last week was the possible setups. Oh Lord. I'm sorry, one second. My wife keeps blowing me up, and I want to see if everything's okay. I'm sorry. My wife wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if the kids had early release or not, and my wife wanted to make sure I got them. Stop touching my keyboard. Okay, so what I was looking at last week was these possible setups in airlines with AAL with this 200 EMA but I was mentioning that a lot of the other ones in the sector were below the 200 EMA, and that's exactly what it did. It continued below the 200 EMA, and AAL, which was the stronger of the two of in the sector, continued lower underneath the moving average as well. So they still kind of are setting up if we get a bounce, but they're pulled back. They're now below the 21-day moving average. As Jim Ropel says, nothing good really happens below the 21-day moving average. So once they get below, I tend to watch for more consolidations and look to see as they get it back above your 10 and 21-day moving averages. I'm not necessarily looking to trade stocks really as they go below. So if you notice here, your 21 day, it broke on July 21st and it could never come back up. This is this yellow line. It's 21 day, you're above here, and it continued up as long as it was above your 21 day. And so that's a very huge, um, just a indicator that I use personally for a lot of swing trades and making sure it's like what kind of stock am I looking for. Another thing that we were looking at was the possible bounce and move in these EVs that we had a nice move and we've seen a little bit of continuation, but now we've started to see more pullbacks and we'll see if they continue, but it's been choppy essentially. If you're swinging this, it's not really great. Your profits are in and out and in and out. Tesla, it came up, it tried to hit this 260 level, and then actually today it looks closed very, very well above this 50-day moving average. And so if we could bounce here, actually Tesla could be a good one, but again, I'm always curious of why has Tesla been lagging if it's such a strong company and such a strong stock? Like, what's it been lagging and what does it need to do in order to have a strong bounce? And so that's one thing uh, that it's just like if it's going to continue, I want to see sector strength as well. The leaders of today were interesting, being a lot of biotech and um, weirdly enough, a lot of these hotels like Wynn and Las Vegas Sands, they were up really good today, but a lot more defensive style and which is showing me kind of almost a rotation. You had Moderna which was up 13%. Celsius was has just been on a tear. It kind of does its own thing, so that's just its own. CRISPR, it's a biotech. LVS, which is Las Vegas Sands Hotel. Merck, which is biotech. Campbell's chicken noodle soup, which was one of the leaders on my market. That's not something that you tend to see in the stronger markets. That's something that you might see during pullbacks. Abibai, Verizon. These stocks were very, very strong today, and these are more defensive stocks. So you're starting to see money coming into more defensive. Hershey, it broke its 50-day today for the first time in months. These stocks have a terrible risk to reward usually. Like you're only looking at a 10% updraw for at the lows here, that's a 6% down move, barely a 1-to-1. And so these ones are, I don't even bother trading most of this shit. It's just something that I look at. And what I look at a lot is how did the winners, how did they close on the day? Did they close at their highs, which most of them did, or did they close as a doji candle towards their lows? Coinbase was a really good example of that today, where you seen that Coinbase gapped up, I think was up to 180 almost in the morning, closed down to at 155, which is absolutely insane, even with Bitcoin moving higher. So that's something that you're seeing is how is it opening versus how is it closing. Rivian had a big gap down today and closed at its lows. Lyft closing at its lows. Carvana hitting its 21 day Lyft breaking through its 21 day, which is usually not what you want to see. Norwegian Cruise Line breaking its 21 day. Blink giving back its whole move that it fully just gave. Twilio below its 21. AMD is right there. So you're starting to see a lot of these are pulling back. JD had a crazy, a lot of China was very weak today. Futu down. China's been weak, but they just haven't really been doing anything. But today they were specifically very far down. XPEV hasn't been able to catch a bid at all. Almost looks distributive in this way. And so that's really what I'm seeing is if we could see a more of a pullback and over the next like I've been saying, the next 3 or 4 weeks have some choppiness and some pullback. That would be really ideal. Set some things up. I'm not seeing a lot of setups right now. Things are very extended. Apple broke its 50-day today, which that's a sell signal. When I see things breaking 50 days, those are tends to be sell signals. Breaking the 50, breaking the 50, breaking the 50, break the 50 here. Up in this was distribution up in 2021. Whenever you break the 50 day, it doesn't always, that's usually a sell signal, especially when you slice through it and on high volume. And today's volume was very high. That was high volume for Apple. Amazon and a lot of these other ones were holding up well. They're holding up above their 21 day. Amazon, Google, they are above their 21 day, but you are seeing this sort of wedging style where it's coming up on, look at some of this sells in Google. You don't have crazy high buy volume here. You're seeing just predominantly in my eyes, I'm seeing more sells. And that's what I'm really looking for. And so if this can pull back, maybe do the 200 day, that'd be perfectly fine. Form a shakeout and then start building another base and coming up. This is what I'm looking for. Microsoft is always the winner. This has been holding up very, very well, but it was still down today, but closed relatively strong. A lot of things closed relatively strong. See, like when you look at the losers, they did close towards their midpoint at least. So they had a decent bounce. But what we want to do is we want to see if we get continuation over the next few weeks. Because if we do, then that's perfectly fine. But if we're probably just going to chop around, because I want to see more of a flush. I want to see more like, because tilt, a lot of people will hear me talk about tilt in um in the chat, in the stock chat. What that is that is the number of traders, the percentage of traders that are currently long versus currently short. And that's a Top Step thing that I got. It's on Top Step X when you get their platform. And what that does is like, in theory, a lot of times is you see, and it's a very short term because it's futures, obviously. So it's more for day trading, but it's kind of gives me, I watch it every day, so I kind of get this idea and a feel for the tape almost. And you're seeing this just like buy the dip type of mentality where you're seeing 80, 90, 80% of traders being long at a time. Where if you think of mathematically, only 1% of traders or so are theoretically successful, and the majority of traders are actually lost traders. Then if you have a heavy herd, then it's like tilt is a way to fade the herd almost. And so I'll look at, and that's actually kind of what happened today. I seen it was like an 83% tilt on NASDAQ or the ES, one of the two. And then we had a pretty big drop to the downside. That's when we had our move right after that. And so you're seeing this heavy like buy the dip mentality, and that while as long as people have like this euphoric mentality, we could see more chop. And I'm not, and like I would really like to see a good like S&P held up so well compared to Nasdaq. And IWM again, it's holding up very well. And so I'd like to see some of this euphoria die down and a little more. of a pullback. So like if IWM came down to 194 or even 190, that would be fantastic. I think 190 would be cool. Yeah, 190 is this little breaker right here. That would be cool. I'd be really cool. I'd be very happy if we got something like that. And a small mild one like one, two, three, yeah, until something like that and not straight down. I don't like straight down movements. And IWM is like it tried to have this breakout, failed its breakout. Obviously, like you don't want to buy a breakout after it's been up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row. Usually those breakouts tend to fail. They pull back and see a higher low, and then you see some sort of a breakout. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of that. DX or not DXY, USD JPY. Another one I'm pretty. There's pretty much a good bullish divergence in the RSI with these two lows right here. I don't even have RSI. I don't have it on this one, but there's a bullish divergence on the RSI from here and a volume divergence as well because you're seeing this right here. This is what I mean by volume divergence. These candles, these sell candles are leaving really long tails. And then this buy candle is starting to be like, see this buy candle right here? This is stronger than that sell candle. Even though that sell candle was a larger day, this was had more volume. And so you're starting to see like a volume divergence where the moving averages are still trending to the lower to the downside. You're still in a distribution type of pattern, but you might see a bounce to 144 to at least this 21-day moving average 143. And that's what I'm looking for with a lot of currencies is like a DXY I was watching, like I'm watching for that DXY bounce. It's been happening, some sort of consolidation again in DXY, and that'll allow a decent little bounce in like UJ, possible shorts in euros. I don't really trade those. I trade more UJ than I do euro or anything else personally. It moves more like NASDAQ, and I think that's one of the main reasons why. Gold, I don't trade gold at all, but I watch it. Gold is starting to look slowing down. It's looking like it's slowing down a lot. And this is very similar to DXY pattern that we're watching right now too, where you have a heavy body, and then a shorter body, and then a smaller body with a higher wick. And then if you start seeing it's like a curl down, like a rollover, that's similar to here, similar to here. That's where we can see like a pullback in gold down to somewhere right around this like 1970 or even 1980 in XAU. I still think this wick needs to be filled, but everybody says all wicks need to be filled, but it doesn't say when. They don't ever. That's like a huge thing. Is like it doesn't specify when, so you can't really use that. So you could see a pullback first, and then eventually fill this wick. I don't necessarily. I don't trade a lot of gold. Don't. I try not to trade at all. Every time I trade it, it just gets manipulated. Um, but I watch it for sake of market sentiment more than anything else. I watch a lot of things that I don't trade. I don't like, I'm very specific with what I trade, but I like to watch everything to get a sense of the breadth and the tape. Because when you see more like energy and defensive stocks starting to strengthen up, then a lot of times you start seeing your tech stocks start to pull back. You've seen a lot of upside reversals today, so that's really good as well. So you're not seeing straight displacement to the downside on a daily chart. You're seeing more like more bottom wicks, which is what we want to see, more of a drifting sometime. Um, where's I didn't want to go to HYG, I wanted to go to here, the yield curve. I'm always watching the yield curve. It's starting to pull back and flatten out, which when we do flatten out, that's when we tend to pull back in the market. And that's playing out exactly as we expected. This is kind of a distribution pattern in itself right here. So we could see a pullback back down to here, which would continue with a possible pullback or consolidation in the market. So it doesn't necessarily mean a pullback specifically, or it could also be a consolidation that may happen. And they're not one-to-one correlated, but they are fairly correlated in their own. So I'm watching for this is the 2 year versus the 30 year. Right now it is inverted. Once it hits the 0, 0 level right here, then they are uninverted and we're starting to get to a more um a normal yield curve. Right now we have an inverted yield curve, so we want to see a normal yield curve in the market, which is which is a positive thing, but sometimes you see as it's reverting, you may see pullback. So it's not a for sure thing, but it's something that I always keep in mind. Like right now, you see the 1 year's at 4.8, 2 years at 4.3, the 3 months is still at 5.7. So that's absolutely insane. The 6 months is at 5.2. So you still see short term very, very, very high interest rates. And then midterm, you're starting to see them mellow out with like the 10 year 3.9 is actually lower than the 30 year, which is what you want. You want the 30 year to be the highest, then the 20, then the 10, and so on and so forth. That's in the strongest economies, that's what you end up seeing. A few stocks I am watching as they're pulling back and as they're building bases. There's not a ton. AI is definitely, it's one that if it does, it's like there's nothing yet because it still looks kind of, I don't really like this how it's rolling over. And if it gets below this like 50-day, which is also 28, which is a 200, which is also like this little pivot right here from this low, then it's probably going to come down to 26 or 25-ish. So, but if it gets above probably right around this this anchored VWAP is the main key. Somewhere right around here, this like $30 level, 29.70, $30 level, then you're gonna start seeing a move back up to you got a quick 10% move to 33, and if the market's super strong, you could see a moves higher. Like, but if the market's not strong, we're not going to see, or if it's choppy, we're not going to see a ton of movement or like straight to all-time highs. There's not. So this is another good one that I was liking is this beam. If we get strength, like we're getting strength in these biotechs, beams testing its 50-day right here. We have this obvious pivot at 30, 30.8. So if we pivot here where we're at right now, yeah, I could look at a chart. If we pivot right now, and where'd I path? And then form a higher low here and start coming up, we could hit this 37, which is already 10%, and then see a move up to this 35, I think. Yeah, 30, 35. So at least this level here, 33. One second, my baby's playing in my dog's water dish and trying to eat the dog food. Sorry about that. My baby was trying to eat my dog's food. Another one I was looking at that I mentioned was this JOBY, this kind of gap up consolidation setup that I had, and it failed that. So I'm seeing more failures than I would want to see. Another one that I was looking at that I mentioned was IONQ, and I mentioned specifically I can't tell whether this looks like I couldn't tell whether this looked like a bull bear flag or a consolidation pivot type that I wanted from like a Carvana, and it ended up being a bear flag, and it's starting to break down. If it breaks below this 200, it's gonna come down another 10 or 20% to $10. And so I'm seeing more failures than I want. Path, this is another one we mentioned. Um, Actually, Fresh I mentioned a few weeks ago. Path I mentioned if it could pivot above here, then we might see something. It failed that. And so you're seeing these moves. Upstart had a nasty failure of 50. Actually formed a really nice pivot right here and broke its 21 day. So I'm seeing a lot of these failures um, that tell me that we could be like a lot of times what you see before market pullbacks is leaders pulling back. And that's exactly what we're starting to see is a lot of these leaders kind of pulling back and then hopefully we'll be consolidating before the market and like what you want to see really is the leaders will pull back first and then they'll start consolidating first as well. And then when the market starts pulling back, the leaders will consolidate. And then before the market goes up, the leaders will go up first. And that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for the previous leaders in this last uptrend that we've had, the strongest stocks. That's um, Upstart, Unity, Frog, a lot of these ones right here that I have on uh, small caps and buy on pullback. Uber was a good one. Um, these are stocks that I'm looking for pullbacks, that I'm looking for them to set up again. Carvana, I'm still looking for this one to break out of that 55 level and run up to 80. And so if this can kind of consolidate somewhere, I wouldn't mind it coming down to 41 even. 46, 41 if it can come down right around there, then I'm cool with looking for more buys for it, but that's right now is not the time for me. A lot of people say, okay, well, you can buy the pullbacks, but I want to see more strength after them. I'm not convinced yet that we have quite had enough. Somebody asked me about crypto in chat about Phil. One thing I mentioned and I've been mentioning in crypto chat is this similar setup on DXY as we have on the USDT. And so the USDT at the 200 EMA, similar to here on November 21st, similar to February 21st as well. So we're seeing this potential setup for a reversal in the USDT, which would mean a potential pullback in crypto and altcoins and Bitcoin and everything. And so I've been making sure that if telling people like if you're buying, be quick to buy, be quick to sell. Just like in the stock market, we are late stage rally. And so, and I don't trade crypto personally. It's not something I don't know why, I just don't anymore. I think it's the KYC issue. And so I'm not one to really, I just go by the charts. And so if this comes up, we could see a bounce up to this 6.43. See how we broke down from here, retest, retest, break down, come right back up, form a W, and then maybe we break back below it. Maybe that creates a lower high, and that gives us a chance to break below it for the first time in a long time. That would be very fine. And so, but what we've always seen is when you get this USDT going to the upside, and I learned this from Playboy from watching him use this for years and years and years. When you're seeing USDT go to the upside, it's vice versa of Coinbase right here, or of Bitcoin right here. So USDT goes up, USDT goes down, Bitcoin goes up. USDT goes down, Bitcoin goes up. So if we bounce here, see right here, we hit this last time we hit this 200 EMA, we had a fatty drop. Do I think we're going to do that again? No, probably not. But could we see some sort of pullback, just like I've been saying in equities? Yes, we could see it. So that's a huge thing that I'm watching the most, and it's on a weekly chart. So, and it's most likely going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Just kind of how I've been saying. We're on week one, two, three, four-ish. So couple more weeks to give confirmation or invalidation if we break below it. If we break below it, great. Then all power to it. Crypto's gonna go have fun. To me, this looks more like some sort of falling wedge. Very similar to that. And this doesn't look like a heavy move up to the 6.4. Like looking at it like this doesn't look crazy. Phil specifically, the one that you asked me about, I don't like that. So see how kind of very similar to how I was mentioning with DXY and a lot of these other assets that I'm looking at, you have this heavy, we'll zoom in even, this heavy like body right here with a medium wick. This next body right here, you couldn't you couldn't close very much above that this previous day, and you left a very heavy high wicks, at least 25% of the full day candle. Let's look. Oops, there it is. So yeah, you couldn't you only got up to 25 right here. So you closed under 25%. You closed at 50% of the range for the day, which is not really what you want to see. When you want to see an update, you want to see a day close above 25% of the full day range. And so what I do is you take the high and the low of the day. In the easiest way, take a high and the low of the day, draw a fib, and see where you are. It's actually easier if you go the high first. Oops. Because then you see, okay, this was the beginning of the day. This was the high. If you close here, that's 50% of the high, 50% of the range. Close at the top, that's 75% of the range. Close at the midpoint, that's 20. Close down here, that's 25% of your range. You're looking to close above 50% of the range, which we barely did. And then today we're having this kind of downside reversal style. A true downside reversal is where you break above the previous day high and then do your reversal. But since we closed, I mean, that would have been a 6% move to the previous day high, so it's not necessarily a huge, like, I wouldn't expect that. So it's setting up to um, where you could see a more of a pullback here. I think my guess is you're still above the 10 day. Yeah, still above the 10 day, still above the 50 day, still above the 21 day. So in a longer term, this is still an uptrend. In a midterm, you could see some sort of it's extended. That's all. It's just extended. You could see some sort of a pullback, you could see some sort of a consolidation, but it's extended. It's nothing ready for buys right now. On a weekly chart, what I use is my 30, I use a 40, 30, 40, 10 is the weekly. Yeah, so like on a weekly, if we were to close right here on a weekly, then you're seeing a shooter on the weekly, a shooting star on the weekly, which is a possible downside reversal. Actually, there's a downside reversal on the weekly, so we broke above the previous week's high, and now we're closing under 50% of this current week's range. That's a true downside reversal right there. So notice last time we did that right here, we had a downside reversal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks kind of consolidation, then pulled back. I don't think that's fully going to happen, but we could see a consolidation or a pullback. Probably, I mean, a pullback down to the 6.3, that'd be perfectly fine. We have a fair value gap right here on the weekly chart. If we close, ideally we close the week above this low right now that we have, create this fair value gap, and then we have that where we could come somewhere in this fair value gap. I really like this level right here because it's also inside of it. Something like that. I don't really trade too much crypto, but that's kind of where I would look if we were to look at a pullback. I'd look around $6. Did you review UJ already? I did review UJ. I'll quickly review it again since I know you were gone and you're probably trying to trade it tonight. I'm I really like it. I really like it for longs. I think we should get above this 10-day moving average within the next few days, and that'll give us confirmation that we could swing it probably up to 133, 143-ish. Actually, this current 4-hour candle looks fantastic. Most likely come up to here, 142.86.83. Once we pivot above 142.17, which I think we just made a pivot above that previous. Yeah, I was trying to get in right here, but it wasn't open yet. Yeah, I think this is going to continue higher. I think UJ is coming at least 142.65, 142.83 tonight. If it's strong, that could happen tonight easily. On a weekly base, very similar to how I've been talking with DXY, where we're starting to see somewhat of a pullback slash consolidation. Like we have 2 weeks now. We have a down week that didn't close. The key for me was it didn't actually close outside of this wick. I would have wanted to see it close the weekly candle outside of this specific low, and it didn't, and then it bounced hard from that. And so I would like to see how it reacts somewhere up here, but I really think we could easily come to this previous week high at a 142.83, and then I mean if it gets strong, it should come up to this 145 level. 144.50, 145. Yeah, because I mean OTE indicators, 50% of the range would be 146. And that would be still bearish. That would still be not breaking any structure. That would actually be really cool because that would match up with our DXY. That matches so perfectly with these 50 and the 10 week moving average. Yeah, this is the key level right here. What is 146? 146.05. Next level for like short term, if you're trying to trade today, 143.17, 142.83, 143.25. Where would you put a stop loss at? If you're looking on a 4-hour time frame or higher, I would just right here, 141.78 below this inside candle, or if you want to be a little less conservative and have a little wider, you could do it right below this 141. But this 50 MA is kind of key. That's a 40 as of right now. Let's change that back to 50. The 50 is really always my key. I like being above the 50. And so once we get above that 50, that's really what I really want to see it move, start moving higher. You're above the 21, you're above the 10. Those are both creeping higher. But until we get above this 50, notice right here, we haven't had a good move. We haven't gotten above this 50 4-hour EMA in a long time. So once we do get above that 50, that's going to really show us. And we have like, you're starting to see here, you see lower, like heavy moves to the downside, like the moves are getting smaller. And that's showing those are signs of potential reversals. When you start seeing the moves to either side, like as they contract, they're getting smaller and smaller with every down tick, then that's really starting to show real signs. Like right here, 3% move, 2% move. That's just under a three. Actually, that's a 3.5. That's pretty good. And then this one right here was 3.1, is 3.2. So I want to see, and actually I think it's about to break this trend line. And this is what I look for, is like how many confluences we can get all in one. Yeah, this trend line here. So I would watch that. I'm actually going to set an alert here right at this trend line. Yeah, pretty. I think UJ is going to continue higher, at least for right now, short term. Yeah, once it gets above that 1 hour 200 EMA, same as that 4 hour 50 MA. That similar, that same little thought, like then it would be above this. It's a great, crazy trend line. That's been going on for since November. Just building liquidity, waiting to be broken. Not even looking at it till morning. Smart. Yeah, I'm honestly might get in here soon, but I'm probably I'm gonna give it a little bit. I wanna hang out with my kids. Fuck, I might just get in. I think I'm gonna. Yeah, I am actually. All right, y'all. That's it for the day. I appreciate you guys. If there's any questions, feel free to ask if you got any more. If not, we'll be back at it next week. And yeah, we'll be back at it tomorrow morning in stream. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.